Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Cricket on Forever Sports. And breaking news in the cricket world is Cricket Australia have officially pulled out of the Test series against South Africa, which was scheduled for the end of February, March. Citing health concerns means that it is too great a risk to travel to South Africa. Now, the date is the 2nd of February. The series was scheduled to go ahead this month. CSA had to amend their entire T20 squad. They named an entire new T20 squad, which would allow pretty much their entire Test 11 to return to South Africa, to quarantine for 2 weeks to allow for the series. And at this time, Cricket Australia have dropped out of the series, which is a complete slap in the face against CSA. And personally, I just don't think it's acceptable. You know, and you look at the reasons they cite, and I mean the opening paragraph of the official Cricket Australia statement says, due to the public health situation in South Africa, which includes a second wave and a new variant of the virus, and following extensive due diligence with medical experts, it has become clear that travelling from Australia to South Africa at this current time poses an unacceptable level of health and safety risk to our players, support staff and community. So why is it that it can be expected for India, who are not doing particularly well in terms of the amount of COVID-19 cases, they are allowed, they can go to Australia and be within the biosecure bubble and have a series. That's fine. Australia travelled to the UK last year during the peak of COVID. Not even necessarily like second wave anything, during the sort of peak of COVID, which that was when worldwide sport had pretty much only just started coming back. They were willing to travel to England. South Africa have since, I understand the issues with the England series, where the bio bubble was sort of broken and stuff like that, and as a result, England eventually had to leave. Since then, CSA successfully hosted Sri Lanka for a 2-test match series where there were no issues, and the Pakistan women are currently taking on the Proteas women in a series, and there have been no issues there. The second wave is currently coming to an end. The cases in South Africa have dropped remarkably. This series would have been towards the end of February, March, where hopefully the case would have even dropped further. You know, and you look at there, and CSA have actually slammed the decision because, I'll read you the press release where it says CSA wishes to record its immense disappointment at the news. The safety of players is always paramount, and over the past few months, CSA held many detailed discussions with CA regarding COVID-19 protocols. If you look at the whole sort of the biosecure environment, they cited the fact that Sri Lanka was fine and the Pakistan women are fine and stuff like that. And they said, and they spoke, what is very interesting is they spoke about how they're taking even more measures for the Australians. Director of Cricket Graham Smith said, "We are extremely disappointed by the decision of Cricket Australia. CSA has been working tirelessly in recent weeks to ensure that we meet every single expectation of CA. This was said to the longest tour in a BSC, comprising a 3-match test series that was scheduled to begin with Australia's arrival later in the month. So to be informed about the CA decision at the 11th hour is frustrating." The CSA Chief Medical Officer said that there wasn't much more they could have done to have appeased Cricket Australia. He says the protocols we had proposed to CA were unprecedented, he said. Firstly, we had agreed that our own protest team would enter a biosecure area environment 14 days prior to the arrival of the Australian team, thus altering their plan during the current tour of Pakistan. This is what I mean. The entire test squad had to return early to quarantine for the series. Among some of the other key arrangements made were all 4 areas, the 2 hotels and 2 venues, had a protocol to implement a strict biosecure environment with no contact with anybody outside this area. We subsequently agreed to 2 separate biosecure environments and had granted Australia full and exclusive use of the Irene Country Lodge, which we share with Sri Lanka with a minimum staff presence. So during the Sri Lanka series, they were all in one place. They all shared a lodge. They had said that Australia can have the entire lodge to themselves in order to try and ensure that it is secure. He said the Proteas were to move a separate hotel altogether, and furthermore, all hotel staff, match officials, and even bus drivers were to enter the secure area for 14 days prior to the Australian arrival. So that means all the hotel staff, the bus drivers, pretty much every single person involved in the series were going to enter this biosecure environment 14 days before Australia even had arrived. So there was sort of a whole environment already created before they even arrived. The CSA Acting Chief Executive Officer said, it is indeed sad that after all the engagement made an effort to ensure a secure visit by our Australian counterparts, the tour has been derailed. CSA has incurred significant costs related to the planning and stage of the cancellation of the tour, represents a serious financial loss. They also had said that they were importing an Australian tracking system to ensure that in the case of a positive test, you'd be able to identify close contacts and stuff like that. And they had apparently negotiated with government to ensure that the Team Australia would get VIP access through airports to ensure that they wouldn't sort of mingle anything like that, and they'll go straight into the biosecure environment. However, despite all of this, Cricket Australia have said that they are not willing to travel. And I think it's a massive slap in the face. And I think CSA are rightfully, will have every right to be incredibly frustrated at this decision. Because how can you justify going to England last year where chances are this sort of concept, where this concept was being trialed, it was going to be the first sort of series back, it was being trialed, the concept of a biosecure environment. And now, when we've had 2 success stories and we're even up in the ante, it's not going to be good enough. These players are subsequently all going to go and play in the IPL in April, which is going to be apparently no issue. And you've got Australia, and there's a lot of fans, and this is what I want to talk about. The fans' response has sort of been, South African fans are understandably livid about the entire situation. And Australian fans are saying, well, it makes sense given what South Africa is going through. Why would you want to go and risk bringing that sort of back? Except for the fact that currently the Australian Open is underway with fans, which means that Australia has welcomed tennis players from across the world into the country. They're going to go in 14-day quarantine, and then they are allowed to sort of go in and have fans, stuff like that. They have offered to host the British and Irish Lions series between the Springboks and the Lions in Australia, as well as saying they would look at hosting a mini World Cup, the Rugby Championship, everything. They're pretty much saying everyone can come to Australia, and they can secure and stuff because we can keep them more safe. However, we will not travel to you. And I think a lot of it speaks to a certain amount of arrogance in thinking that no other nation aside from them are capable of producing a biosecure area and being able to get the series underway, which I think is a big slap in the face, considering that after the issues with the England series, CSA have currently run 2 successful international tours. They've also got the Momentum One Day Cup, which, bar the rain, has also, in terms of a biosecure environment, worked very, very well. So I think it is a very difficult for Australia to actually be able to justify, given all the various circumstances, given the fact that South Africa is actually improving, and that all these sort of measures are in place to actually not come down to the series. And for Cricket South Africa, have lost so much revenue with the India series from last year, August, being cancelled, really could not afford this. It is a massive blow for cricket. And, thankfully, there's big repercussions for Cricket Australia, because as a result, they actually will not make the final of the ICC World Test Championship, which in my opinion serves them right. If they're not going to be willing to come and back another nation to be able to keep them safe or whatever, then, that's the price you pay. England are about to go for a tour we're about to have a tour of India. India about to come there. We've had tours in Sri Lanka, in Bangladesh. We've had West Indies and New Zealand. And they've been minimal issues regarding that. The idea of a biosecure environment has started to work. There were issues in the sort of teething phases, but it looks like there is a decent sort of blueprint, and it does seem to be working. And despite this, Cricket Australia have pulled out. And if I was South Africa, and I'd love to know if there was actually a counter offer to actually have the series in Australia, which I wouldn't surprise if it would. But if I was CSA, I would turn down the next opportunity to tour Cricket Australia and now start looking at other people, because you always have to do things on the Australian terms at this stage. Cricket Australia have always been that sort of union which tries to sort of flex its muscle, and along with the BCCI, kind of trying to take control of things and always sort of do things their way. But the biggest loss is the fact now we've got no more Test cricket, which is a massive loss for us. Very frustrating, because it would have been a really nice Test series. The first Test series back since Warner and Smith returned. There would have been no crowd, but there would have been so much on the line. And I think both sides, with talent, but not necessarily producing the best performances on the pitch. So it's very frustrating. Let me know what you think of the whole sort of decision and whether it's going to be justified in the comments below. I think it's very frustrating, and I think that I do back CSA's response, and I think it looks like they had gone through every precaution, and that it was reasonable to expect them to actually uphold the commitment and to come down here. because I don't think much has changed in the last week or the last two to really have changed that. Things have been going down since South Africa went into a stricter lockdown. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Smash a like on the video as well. Subscribe to the channel. My name is Stephen. We've got a preview coming up for the second test between Sri Lanka and Pakistan. So make sure you keep it locked on Forever Sports, and I'll chat to you very soon.